The year was 2008, and similarly to nowadays, there wasn't a clear dominant national team, club, or even player. Football was going through a transitional period after Brazil lost much of its power, Real's Galácticos aged, and pretty much every legend from the 90s was either retired or way off their prime. However, in the beautiful lands of Austria and Switzerland, 16 nations would battle it out for a chance to occupy football's throne for the next couple of years. At first sight, it was perhaps one of the most unpredictable Euro tournaments of all time, after Greece won the competition in 2004, and given the lack of a powerhouse, those watching had the feeling that anything could happen. In this video, I'll take you on a trip back to Europe in the mid-2000s and show you every upset, every comeback, and every shocking moment that happened in the nostalgic Euro 2008 that defined an era well into the next decade. But before we start, if this isn't the first time watching this channel, please consider subscribing. With your help, we've already achieved 2,000 subscribers, and now it's time to aim at 10,000. Now without further ado, let's get right to it. For starters, let's talk about one of the most shocking absences from an international tournament in recent history. England, who still possessed a big chunk of their golden generation, only needed a draw in their last fixture to qualify to the Euros, but instead, the English got beat 3-2 by Croatia in plain Wembley Stadium and missed the tournament for the first time since 1984. Denmark was another important absence who missed the Euros for the first time since 1980, while Ukraine, who made it all the way to the quarters in the 2006 World Cup, also failed to make the cut. On the other hand, both Poland and Austria, still without any world-class stars, made their debut in this prestigious tournament. With that in mind, and with the hopes that we might witness something extraordinary happen like we did 4 years ago, the European extravaganza finally began. Group A looked like an accessible ride for the Euro 2004 runners-up. Czech Republic were declining, Turkey did remarkably well in the 2002 World Cup, but in the next 6 years they failed to qualify to any international tournament, while the hosts, Switzerland, were only seen as strong contenders to get second place in the group. Either way, you'll soon realize it was pointless to predict anything in this Euro edition. Switzerland lost their opening match against Czech Republic, and to make it worse, they also lost their star striker Alexander Frey to injury in that same match. That setback impacted the Swiss mentality a lot, and in their next match, Turkey made a comeback and won the game in the last minute of added time. After only 4 days, the Swiss dream was already over. On the other hand, Portugal was flying. Ronaldo and his teammates breezed past the Czechs and Turks, but their promising campaign would take a turn for the worse. After having guaranteed their qualification to the knockout rounds, Scolari announced to the entire squad that he would depart for Chelsea after the end of the competition. That was the worst possible timing, as the players' morale was clearly affected by the turmoil that the media created around them, so much so that they didn't win a single match from that point on. But despite finishing second, I think Turkey were the biggest winners from that group. 2 comebacks in the last 2 matches, including a 3-goal barrage in only 15 minutes against Czech Republic. Just like in 2002, Turkey was back on top of the world. Group B looked by far the easiest in the entire competition. Germany were showing signs that they were finally becoming a serious threat again, and they were gifted 2 debutants, and Croatia, who looked nowhere near as imposing as they did in 1998 or in recent years. Still, after a predictable first round, Croatia shocked Germany, beating them 2-1, turning the Germans' last match against Austria into a bona fide final. The Mannschaft would still qualify after narrowly beat Austria, but they would have to settle for second place after Croatia won their 3rd consecutive match against Poland. Group C was undeniably the selling point of Euro 2008. The 2 World Cup finalists, Netherlands emerging with yet another golden generation, and Romania, who at first sight looked like the punching bag for the Giants. But against the odds, the Romanians actually held their own against both France and Italy, keeping the scores level in their first 2 games. The Netherlands, however, wouldn't take their opponents lightly. The Clockwork Orange decimated every opponent and at first sight looked like the most likely to win the Euros. Italy would accompany them to the knockouts after beating Les Bleus in their decisive matchup, who were about to enter one of the darkest periods in their history. Group D was in my opinion the most intriguing. Spain were by far the best team, but this wasn't the first time La Roja had shown a lot of promise only to bottle it when it mattered the most. Greece were the defending champions, but they had missed the 2006 World Cup, and most fans doubted they could catch lightning in the bottle twice. Sweden were a solid side built around one of the best players in the world, while Russia had shown they could beat almost anyone during their qualifying campaign. Ultimately, this group ended in the most predictable way possible. Spain trembled a bit against Greece and Sweden and were only able to win their matches close to the 90-minute mark, but still finished the group in first place, registering 3 out of 3 possible wins. On the other hand, the Greeks showed that their luck had run out and went down as the worst defending champions in the competition's history, while Russia, despite their initial tough loss, overcame Sweden and progressed to the knockouts for the first time since the USSR days. 11 days after Euro 2008 kicked off, we were already on the road to the final in Vienna. The action was really fast-paced back then. You'd blink your eyes and suddenly the group stage was already gone. Honestly, I kinda prefer the longer Euros that we have nowadays, but it's undeniable that the amount of stacked, high-stakes matchups was much bigger back then. Either way, there were still many underdog stories in tournaments like this, and thankfully we got to witness 2 in this edition. Turkey and Croatia battled it out in the quarters, knowing that whoever won that match would make it to the semis for the first time in their history. It was really impossible to predict this one. Croatia only knew the taste of victory, but Turkey had emerged victorious in dramatic fashion in their last 2 matches. Indeed, a fiery bout on paper that had one of the most extraordinary endings in football history. After 119 minutes of back and forth action, no nation had managed to overcome the other and score a goal, until Klasnic took advantage of Hüsnü Reçber's mistake and scored the apparent winning goal. But you see, this was all part of Turkey's plan. Their strategy up until this point was to let the opponent score first and then break their hearts, and this match was no different. Semih Şentürk took the Croatian players' soul with that goal. They were visibly shaken during the penalties, with future legends Modric and Rakitic failing to convert from the spot. Reçber would redeem himself, and 6 years later Turkey was making history once again. In the other match, Portugal would collapse against Germany. The match finished 3-2, but it wasn't nearly as balanced as it seemed. Like I mentioned earlier, Scolari's exit played a big role in the players' morale, and the goalkeeper Ricardo continued to compromise when it mattered the most. Both men would be out of the national team to never return again. Regarding the last 2 quarter-final bouts, all eyes were on Spain versus Italy. The world champions Italy showed signs of decline during the tournament and looked worse than Spain, who had been patiently destroying their opponents with their new tiki-taka philosophy. However, Spain always seemed to naturally crash at the quarter-final stage. As you can imagine, that match was a mental and tactical battle of football philosophies, a chess-like game that couldn't be resolved in 120 minutes. At this time, luck was on the Spanish side. Casillas overcame Buffon in the penalty kick showdown, and Spain were on to the semis. What they didn't expect, however, was that they would be facing Russia again. Netherlands vs Russia was overlooked by many, since it was almost certain that the Netherlands would steamroll their way onto the semis, but we couldn't be more wrong. You see, Russia had Andrei Arshavin on their side. To many fans, he was a complete unknown in his late 20s, but during that match, he orchestrated a massive revolution. The Dutch were kept at bay and couldn't find dangerous opportunities to strike, unlike in their previous matches, while Russia took advantage of their positive playing side and viciously attacked them with counters after counters. The 90 minutes would come to a close with the scores tied, but it was actually the Netherlands who had to score a late goal to take this one into extra time. However, the Russian revolution was too well known to be stopped, and in the last 10 minutes of extra time, Van der Sar led 2 goals past them, effectively ending their dreams of meeting Spain in the semis. Who knows what could have happened if a more positive side like the Netherlands faced off against Spain? Maybe their glorious period would have never started. But the fact of the matter is that Russia deserved to be in the semis, considering their standout performance, but Spain were so viciously patient and careful that Arshavin went from a god to a mere mortal from one game to another. Unfortunately, Spain vs Russia looked like a training session to the final. The Spanish players were more confident than ever and thrashed the Russians once again. The other semi-final, though, was way more interesting. Turkey stepped up against Germany and showed more will to win than the Germans. And just like in every Turkey match from Euro 2008, it went drama until the end. Despite a positive start, the Turks let Germany make a comeback. But Semih Şentürk came in clutch once again and tied the match 2-2 with only 4 minutes left to play. But Germany gave Turkey a taste of their own poison and won the match in the 90th minute. The Turkish dream came to an abrupt end, but at least it did so in a poetic way. And so the stage for an era-defining final was set. With the Blue Danube playing in the background, both Germany and Spain hoped they could waltz their way into the top of the football pyramid. Unfortunately for us fans, this final actually contrasted with the whole vibe of the tournament. I don't know if the players took some pills in those Austrian and Swiss Eurodance nights, but you had madness happening in almost every single match. Dramatic comebacks, amazing finishes, and almost every match was closely contested. But the final, Spain vs Germany, felt completely out of place. Spain scored early in the match through Torres and then controlled the pace with little to no resistance by the Germans. The Mannschaft showed they were once again an efficient machine, but they were still taking their first steps back to being the best in the world. While Spain completely casted their demons to the side and would use this Euro triumph to catapult La Roja into not only the best team in the world for the next 6 years, but also one of the best football sides of all time. In retrospective, this Euro Championship that lasted less than a month really defined football for the next couple of years. France entered a massive downward spiral that they would only be able to climb out almost 10 years later. Italy would suffer almost the exact same fate, but for an even longer period, while the finalists Spain and Germany would be the most dominant European sides until 2014. This would also extend to football at club level, as in the next season Barcelona would begin their most glorious period and dominate pretty much everyone for the next 10 years alongside Real Madrid and Bayern Munich. Curiously, although not as prevalent in this tournament, Cristiano Ronaldo would win his first Ballon d'Or in the same year and kickstart the most famous football rivalry of all time. After year 2008, the battle lines had been drawn and football was about to gift us one of its most spectacular eras of all time. And that is it for the video. Don't forget to leave a like so I know you want to watch more content like this, and subscribe to never miss the most interesting football discussions, stories and top 10 lists. Thank you for watching until the end, I appreciate you and I will see you soon.